Hi everybody. I want to do a quick introduction to my page, Chris Cakes. Thank you everybody for liking the page and agreeing to follow me along in this journey. And I have a series of videos planned, and this is the first one. I was wanting to get everybody kind of up to speed with where I'm at today and what my diagnosis is and what I've kind of gone through to this point to get to a diagnosis of cervical cancer. So I will do that in the upcoming video. But anyway, thank you so much for paying attention to this and for caring and for being here. Thank you. In this particular video, I'm going to talk about how I got to this place. How did I get a cancer diagnosis? And I have some future videos planned on more detailed look at surgery and my upcoming surgery and emotional support and just kind of all the little things that go into what it's like to be experiencing this. So how did I get here? Well, my diagnosis is endocervical adenocarcinoma. What the hell does that mean? So that's cervical cancer. There's two different kinds of cervical cancers. By and large, most cervical cancers are squamous cell. Somewhere between 85 to 90% of all cervical cancers are squamous cell cancers. The rest of it are adenocancers, ADENO, and those are, it's glandular. So it's a little bit trickier to find, a little bit trickier to treat. When you're working with squamous cell cancers and a lesion is found on a woman's cervix, they can be pretty confident that they can get out, scrape out all the lesion, cut it out, whatever it is that they have to do. However, with adenocarcinoma, it presents differently. There are skip patterns. It jumps around from different parts of the reproductive organs, and therefore the gold standard for treatment is a hysterectomy. So, and I'll kind of get into that, but wanted to just kind of document my background a little bit on this. So I got my diagnosis, I don't know, like a week ago, something like that. And previous to that time, I have been super religious with getting my annual screenings once a year from the time that I've been sexually active on, and have never missed. I've never had an abnormal pap. When I was 30, I did get, I did not have an abnormal pap, but I did find out that I had HPV, and it was a high-risk strain. My doctor at the time told me that we just need to watch it. We need to see if anything happens as a result of this, and if it does, then we'll take further, tests and evaluation, and if it doesn't, then great. As far as I knew, nothing had ever come of it, and that my body absorbed the HPV, and that was that. So in March of this year, I had my regular pap, and it came back a week or so later as abnormal, which was immediately frightening. Any woman that has received an abnormal pap knows that it can be scary, just like, oh my God, what's going on? Our reproductive organs are responsible for so much that happens in our bodies, and so many things can go wrong with it that it's frightening to think all of the things that it could be, right? So my doctor immediately referred me to a OBGYN, who I went to go see a week or so after that. And I wasn't quite sure what they were going to do with that appointment, but as soon as I got my abnormal results back, I started doing some research online. The kind of abnormality that I got back was that it had Agus cells, AGUS. I'm not quite sure if that's how you pronounce it. It may be Agus. I'm not quite sure, but that's what it came back as. So I immediately Googled that and, tried to figure out what in the world I was looking at. And of course, up popped adenocarcinoma. And so I kind of had a little bit of understanding about what this could be all about. Also, from what I understood, is that most of the time, the vast majority of the time, up to 75% of the time, women that have aegis or agas cells on their abnormal pap, is that it's nothing. It's benign. It goes away. It's nothing that needs further treatment. And then the rest of the time, there is. So I went in not really knowing what to expect, but my gut feeling was that something was wrong. So I went in and I had prepped to get biopsies because I thought that maybe that might be happening. And it did. Thankfully, I immediately loved my OBGYN, and she did a few different procedures. She did punch biopsies on the cervix, which is done with like this long contraption thing that has like scissor handles, and it's got a piston on it, and when you pull the trigger, it takes a chunk of your tissue out. It didn't feel good. So she did a few of those on different sides. She said she did visually see a spot. Once they do a certain kind of wash on your cervix that helps like bring out any cellular changes. So she took those, and then she did endometrial biopsy as well, which also did not feel good, which is essentially the same thing, only it's much higher up in the canal, like into the uterine lining, because that's another characteristic of agas cells, is that they hang out and start in the upper part of the cervix or in the uterus. You kind of have to think of it as growing at the top, starting at the top and then growing down. That's kind of a good rule of thumb when thinking about adenocancers and versus squamous, where they kind of start at the bottom at the external part of the cervix and grow up. So she did that, and then she also did an endocervical curettage, or ECC for short, and that is essentially another tool that they use. It's like another long tool, of course, that has like a scoop on the end of it, and it just scoops out chunks. It's not the punch biopsy, it's more scraping and scooping. None of that felt good. I was a little shaky afterwards, but got through it, and took an Advil and went to work. So got the results from that a week or so later, and my diagnosis at that time was adenocarcinoma in situ in the endocervical canal and on the cervix. The endometrial biopsy came back clean. There was nothing there. So then the next step from there was, and let me back up. If you don't know what adenocarcinoma in situ means, essentially that's pre-cancer. It means that there's cancer cells growing, but they're theoretically in their spot, that they haven't expanded outward or inward. So it's considered to be dependent. It's kind of like a debate in the medical community. It's either the highest form of pre-cancer or the lowest form of cancer, like a stage 0. So, okay, next step from there, on May 11th, I was scheduled for a cone biopsy or a cold knife biopsy. It's used, that word is used interchangeably. So that is an outpatient procedure you are put under, and essentially what they do is take a cone-shaped wedge out of the cervix, and then of course send that to pathology, and the goal is to see if they can get all of the lesion, all of the abnormality in this one cone, and you come back either having clear margins, meaning that everything was contained in that one sample, or you have negative margins, which means it wasn't. In addition to doing that, she did another deeper ECC.